Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's Q&As. It looks like there's a bunch of questions across a few different platforms, so I'm just going to jump right in. First up, over on Subscribestar, I have no idea how to say that name, so I'm not even going to try. Great name. Have I gotten any hands-on time with the PS1 HDMI? They're wondering how it handles the switch from 240p to 480i and wants to know if there's going to be a drop in video like when using certain scalers. So I have not had hands-on time with the PS1 HDMI, but I know for a fact that Dan and Christoph are trying to address that problem and that very specific problem. So while I don't want to speak for them, I would feel pretty confidently that whatever solution they come up with is going to be as good as or better than any of the very good solutions that are out there now for fast switching. So I think they probably have it figured out, but once again, I would feel uncomfortable putting words in their mouth and saying things that may or may not happen. So I guess the best way to answer it is I think you're going to be pretty pleased with how this comes out. So hopefully I'll get a chance to do a review soon. Next, the importer asked, any idea why PC Engine CD games can't be ripped with a normal ISO extractor program like ImageBurn? They're supposed to be regular CD-ROMs, not a proprietary format. I have no idea, and Firebrand X's Patreon is probably the one to ask this question on because I believe he ripped all of his own games himself. I believe my buddy Beast did as well, so I'm not sure what method they used or why. I just know that some of the early forms of copy protection just meant formatting things in a way that your average drive or software wouldn't see normally. So things like putting data before CD tracks and stuff like that. I don't know if I'd call it copy protection, just a rudimentary way of doing it. That might have kind of been part of it. But yeah, if anybody else knows the definitive answer, I'd kind of like to know myself just out of curiosity. One more from the importer. Do I think that Super Game Boy will ever be possible with either the Game Boy or SNES Mr. Core? So I think it's going to go a lot farther than that eventually. I believe the FPGA that's in the SD to SNES Pro, the newer one that just came out, is powerful enough to emulate that via FPGA. And I think that, or I'm pretty sure that the Mr. one is powerful enough to do that as well. So it's just a matter of whenever the devs feel like doing it. It's not easy, of course. None of this stuff is easy. But the fact that we have Super Game Boy support in emulation is a very promising sign because it means people have tackled it one way or the other. So it should be possible. Just like with everything else in the Mister, though, it's going to come down to if the devs have time and if that's the projects they want to work on. But I do hope it's eventually added, especially because if you have full control over this stuff, you could have things like Super Game Boy, but in the proper aspect ratio and with all the borders and all that stuff. Of course, you could do that now with like the FrameMeister and obviously with post-processing, but it would just be really nice to have that all in one box to be able to have it all taken care of. So good question, and I guess I would just stay patient for all the Mr. stuff. There's a great team of people working on it, so who knows what they can do. Core X09 had a pretty interesting statement. Just a reminder about CRTs for retro gaming. You should advise people to avoid HD CRTs as they introduce all the problems that LCD screens have because of digital processing. So I'm always trying to find a way to word this properly. So things like a Sony BVM that's a tri-sync monitor will handle everything perfectly. 240p is 240p, 720p is 720p, and everything else, including up to 1080i. But you're 100% right. Any of the CRTs that were consumer grade, especially any of the ones with HDMI inputs, at least the ones that I've seen, process whatever is incoming as whatever the highest resolution is. So it's very common for not only are 240p games processed as interlaced, but they're also upscaled then to 1080i, the resolution of the tube. So I'm trying to find a way to word that correctly, and I'm also trying to confirm that with every set. Because the only experience that I really have with this is on the Sony tubes. I believe we tried a Samsung as well, and it was the same thing. And not only that, you can't really do the RGB mods for them as well because there's no jungle chip. It's all treated like a video card. And in fact, if you opened up the Samsung one that we took a look at, it looks like there's an ATI video processor in there. And you're also correct that it does add lag because this processes the image right in a time where people didn't understand that that was going to be an issue. So Depending on your use and depending on what you need it for, HD CRTs can be amazing or they could be just the worst choice for you. So, if you're using any 240p games, of course, forget about it. But things like PlayStation 2, most of that library is 480i. So playing that on a widescreen HD CRT in 1080i isn't that bad, all things considered. It looks pretty smooth, and the 2 frames of lag it adds isn't the worst. So I would say that if you had a choice between going PS2 direct into a flat screen or PS2 direct into an HD CRT, I would actually choose that HD CRT over it because the lag's going to be the same, but the overall image is probably going to look better. But one thing I definitely want to figure out is, are there any progressive scan, so 480p up to 1080i, is there any EDTV or HDTV, whatever you want to call it, any non-15 kilohertz only consumer grade sets out there that would be able to handle all resolutions properly with or without a mod? Or is your general statement true in that every consumer grade HD CRT should be avoided for retro unless you really know what you're doing and know the different features of it? So it's definitely something I want to work on and eventually try to figure out. And if anybody knows any very specific model numbers of tubes that don't do that, or not just tubes, the TV sets, please let me know and I'll try my best to hunt one down and test it. Eric Hurley wants to know where to get the latest version of the Triple Bypass version 2, as well as the bomb. And to be honest, I don't think that's published publicly yet because we're being very, very careful that everything's perfect. Not to say that anything before wasn't great, it's just with the MD Fourier software and with everything that we've learned, we want to make sure that there isn't any last-minute tweaks, especially because another company already stepped up and offered to order a bunch for us and make them available for a reasonable price, just like the original one. So I don't want to have any issues with this. Now it's one board for all models as opposed to different boards like last time. You just have to set jumpers in order to set which model Genesis you're installing it into. And it should line up within 1% of MD Fourier on every model now as well. So we're just waiting on the final bomb configuration. I could email you everything we have now, knowing that if you're chasing perfection, you might have to change a resistor later on from like 100 ohm to 95 ohm. But that's really as crazy as we're getting in all of this stuff. Big shout out to everybody else on the team except me, to be honest. I think this time around, the past 6 months, I've done the least amount of work I've ever done for it, other than basic testing. So amazing team of people working on it, and it will be public soon. The only things to remember, I could send you no problem, we'll send anybody the bomb, anybody except Kaiko. I'll gladly send the bomb and the Gerbers to. But just make sure that you know what you're getting into. And on the other side of things, if you just want a pre-built board, the ones from Insurrection are still going to give you equal quality to what this is. You're just going to have to change some components around, whether it's because, let's say, they only have the one for the Model 1 Genesis left and you're putting it on a Model 3 or whatever, so you'd have to swap those. And there's a few more that you could change, a few more resistors, and I believe a capacitor you have to change in order to get the values to match up perfectly. But once again, that's only if you're chasing perfection. So if you just want a really good Genesis, you could throw the ones from Insurrection in as is, and there's a good chance you might not even notice the difference in audio balance. It's certainly not like an amplification thing or a quality thing. It's just balancing the levels and stuff like that. And the filters. I'm oversimplifying because I don't want to rant for 20 minutes about how much I love the triple bypass. So skipping to the end. So the short version, if you really want the new one and you want to end up being one of the beta testers, let me know and I'll send everything over and let me know how it goes. Or just pick one up from Insurrection right now, or wait a few months for the new ones to come in stock pre-assembled. Totally up to you. Cam recently picked up some of the modified clicky Neo Geo CD pads and is having a hard time getting them to work properly on the Mister via the blister board. So I read your entire question, and I'm really there's a few things that I would need to know in order to help a little bit more. But first of all, what do you mean by modified clicky Neo Geo CD pads? Any kind of modification of the signal might change how they work. However, if you're just talking about a Neo Geo CD controller and you're using it with the standard Neo Geo end to it, using it through the blister should just work. I haven't tested Neo Geo yet. I have done quite a bit of testing with a Genesis controller, and there's a few things that I found when using the blister. It's a little finicky in that when you boot the Mister, don't touch any buttons and any of the controllers that's plugged into the blister. And even when you load the core, make sure you're not touching or holding down any of the buttons when the core loads, or it just won't work at all. The other thing I found really strange is that with this setup, I need to plug in a USB keyboard in order to set everything up first, regardless if something was working before or not. So my suggestion to you would just be to try to figure out what order you're doing things in and if there's anything getting in the way. So, with the blister board plugged in, but not a low latency controller, just through USB, have that plugged in by itself, load it up with a keyboard and make sure the game loads, and see if you could map it to the keyboard. Then try again with booting the Mister from off, from completely powered off, all the way into the core with the blister controller plugged in, but never touching it, only using the keyboard to navigate, and see if that fixes your issues. For me, once I got everything mapped and set up, then all I would have to do is just turn on the Mister, count to 5, make sure the blister figures out what's going on, and then just start using the blister controller, and everything was fine. I believe the delay is because it pulls the ports to see if it's low latency or if there's a standard USB plugged in. But that polling is only done on boot or core boot, so it's not like it's adding latency to the games or anything like that. So it looks like you only tested the Neo Geo controller, and I believe they're both like that. So I would just try with any other controller and see what's see what's happening, or just go through the steps that I said. And if you're still having issues, let me know, because I haven't spent as much time with the blister as I wanted to, but it seems pretty awesome. There's a few CRT questions from Bad Reality. In one of the latest Phone Dork videos, he mentions that shadow mask monitors and aperture grill monitors both have their advantages, but never elaborated on what they are. So I'm not sure if you got the rest of your statements right. I'll go through the rest of your question. You say, I know shadow mask TVs have thinner scanned lines. I don't know if I would describe it as that. It's different. It's not the same. I guess you could say it's thinner, but it's a different look. Next, a rounded glass screen and rounded phosphors compared to an aperture grill's thicker scanned lines, cylindrical glass screen, and square phosphors. So the phosphors I think you got right, but the curvature of the glass seems pretty similar to me, at least in that I'm not sure if the glass curvature really affects the look as much as the different types. You also said shadow mask CRTs can be rejuvenated with the CRT rejuvenator, and aperture grills will die if a rejuvenator is used on them. I don't know if that's true either. I vaguely remember talking to a few different people about using a CRT rejuvenator on Sony monitors with the aperture grills, and I just think you have to build a specific harness for it. You can't just plug the same one in. So I think you might be a little bit confused on the differences. Remember, don't always believe what you read in forums and stuff. No disrespect, I'm just saying. But the one thing that I've, without a doubt, could say about this, and that I started to really see the difference when I started playing Neo Geo. And this might sound weird, but I think it's a really great way to describe it, in that my whole life I only played Neo Geo in the arcade. I never had the home version of it. And in the arcade, they only used the shadow mask CRTs. And then the past few years, I've been really gaming on Sony BVM monitors, and that has the distinctive Sony aperture grill look with the scan lines that you're describing. And when I plugged in my Neo Geo AES with the RGB mod and all that to my Sony, it immediately looked weird to me. And I went, why is this weird? And then I realized that other than, emulation through testing, every single moment I've spent with Neo Geo has been on a shadow mask. So my eyes just didn't like the way that everything was drawn on the aperture grill. And sure enough, when I swapped over to a different TV, I'm like, oh, this is what Neo Geo is supposed to look like to me. So that is the biggest difference, in my opinion, is if your eyes are really used to something, you'll probably prefer that, especially if they're equal in performance and all that stuff. So, the whole thing about scan lines too, I don't know if I'd say they're thicker or thinner. It also depends on line count, because you could have an aperture grill monitor with a low line count where with the scan lines are different sizes and shapes. So, and I've done some comparisons where I took very close-up pictures of CRTs. I really hope to collaborate with better videographers at some point about the different types of CRTs, and it basically addressed a lot of the stuff that you said, but I think at the end of the day, it's really just going to be preference and what's available to you. And don't forget, I don't mind sounding like a broken record, but any CRT is a win. Anyone. So, even if you just got an HD CRT like we discussed before, there's still uses for it. So as long as you don't mind having to deal with the big heavy CRT as opposed to just a scaler, anything that anybody uses is a good thing. And then any kind of preference or tweaking past that, I would just consider a bonus. One more question from Bad Reality, kind of in the same vein. For playing Game Boy Advance games, is a 250-line PVM CRT monitor the best solution? The visible TV lines in between each phosphor give a 250-line PVM an LCD-like look. That actually depends on the size of the monitor. So if it's a really small one, everything's going to be closer together. So once again, it's a lot of factors into how a CRT looks. It's, size, line count, aperture grill versus shadow mask, age of the CRT, calibration, a lot of that stuff has to do with it. But the point that Bad Reality is making is the horizontal scan lines could possibly mesh with the vertical TV lines to create a visible black grid reminiscent of a Game Boy screen. Or do I suggest Bad Reality plays on a BVM, PVM, and go for a scan line look, or what's the best for playing your Game Boy games? Well, you're not going to want to hear this answer, but the best is whatever looks best to your eyes. The worst is a laggy solution that's not accurate. The worst is an easy answer, like the Retron 5. But it's not the worst, by the way. But it's just, I could tell you what's not a good solution, but what is best really is what's best for you. And this drove home big time when I was playing the Game Boy Advance Consolizer, the Woozle kit, in that I loved some of the artwork of the games I was playing just on my flat screen the way it was, but sometimes I would turn on the grid scan lines, not the horizontal ones, but the grid ones, and it really did kind of feel like I was playing on a Game Boy Advance. But with stuff like Zero Mission, I preferred to play it in RGB on a PVM, because then to me it felt like a Super Nintendo game, because I loved Super Metroid so much that playing Zero Metroid and having it feel like Super Metroid was a pretty awesome thing for me. So there is no right way to do it. There's just wrong ways to do it. So I'm sorry that I don't have a better recommendation for you. I wish I could say what you were hoping for. Like, yes, find a 450 line, 17.5 inch monitor, turn it on its side or some crap like that. But there just is no right answer. It's whatever you prefer. And for me, that even changes on the regular when it comes to Game Boy Advance, not only between games, but whatever I'm in the mood for, or if I'm too lazy to wheel over one of my monitors and go set everything up. So kind of a complicated answer, but sorry I don't have a direct one for you. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for everybody that participates in these. I really enjoy doing them, and I hope I'm able to point people in the right direction with some of my suggestions and stuff. And if you're new to all of this, post any question you'd like in the newest post wherever it is that you subscribe. So it doesn't matter if it's Bitbacker, Subscribestar, Patreon, YouTube, whatever. Just find the latest Q&A and post all your questions there, because the way these work, it's almost impossible to sort through all of the previous ones and figure out any new questions that pop up. Other than that, it's pretty much it. Ask your questions, and if I miss one, it's always been a mistake. I've never intentionally blown off a question before, so if for whatever reason I don't get to yours, please re-ask it, because I probably did answer it and then just forgot to add the file into Premiere or something like that. But as always, thank you so much for all your support, and I'll see you next time.